Welcome back, my friends. Jake here. Today's video is a follow-up from the video I posted 2 days ago titled Fear in Russia, Does Ukraine Have 300-kilometer range missiles? If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. But it remains a mystery what exactly happened to this Russian Air Force base in occupied Crimea. Was it long-range missiles that destroyed it? Was it Ukrainian special forces sneaking behind enemy lines? Regardless, it probably remains a real quandary for the Russians. And at least publicly, Russia is sticking to their story that it was an accidental detonation with minor damage. Maybe a Russian soldier was just being careless with their cigarette and dropped it next to some fertilizer. People can believe whatever they want. And on the Twitter channel, Ukraine Battle Map, they conducted a poll of mostly people who support Ukraine. 3,244 people voted, and this is interesting. 40% of people believe that this was US-supplied ATACMS missiles. 31% believe it's a domestically produced Ukrainian missile system like the Grom-2. 12% think it's a modified Neptune or Harpoon anti-ship missile used to hit this base. And then 15% fall in the other category, which could include some kind of Ukrainian Special Forces operation. And the number one comment I got on that video is, Jake, go check out the YouTube channel, Combat Veteran Reacts. He seems like a good guy, so I'll give him a shout out in this video. And 3 days ago, he made the video titled, Satellite Pics Tell Exactly What Happened to Russian Airbase. And he makes the argument in this video that it was Ukrainian Special Forces, maybe with the help of partisan actors, who snuck onto this base and planted bombs next to the buildings and next to the planes. And as cool as an idea as this is, I just find it unrealistic that Ukrainian Special Forces would be dropped 200 kilometers behind enemy lines with hundreds of pounds worth of explosives and then in broad daylight on a Monday morning set all of these charges to go off without any of them being seen or captured or killed. So it's a cool idea, but I have a different explanation. And in the video, Combat Veteran focuses on these berms, these foxholes where the planes are being parked. A berm is a earth barrier that can be either artificially or created. And you'll notice that all of these planes are shielded on three sides by an earth wall. And Combat Veteran made the argument that if a missile struck here, then there would be this barrier in multiple locations protecting this plane. And if a missile struck here, there's a barrier here, there's a barrier here. It would have offered some protection to this plane. So instead, he makes the argument that humans must have snuck onto the base and then planted bombs next to each plane in addition to these two buildings. One would have been a fuel warehouse, the other one would have been the munitions warehouse. So here is the misconception about what happened that Combat Veteran didn't catch. And you'll notice these planes parked between the berms. The purpose of this is to protect the planes against maintenance accidents. While refueling a plane or resetting the munitions, there might be an accident by a maintainer, so you just have this earth wall to protect the plane one berm over. Seems easy enough. And Combat Veteran said, well, if a missile were to come in and then impact the ground, these berms should have protected the planes at least two berms over. So if a missile struck here, maybe this plane would be completely destroyed, but this plane farther over would be protected by the earth barriers. Therefore, it couldn't have been a missile that struck this base. And this isn't how the missiles work, which is what I want to explain in this video. Here is the spectrum of the missiles that can be fired by the M270 and the M142 HIMARS. These are the smaller GMLRS. I'm arguing in my video that ATACMS were provided to the Ukrainians. And specifically, we need to focus on the ATACMS Block 1 M39 and the ATACMS Block 1A M39A1. And here is the US Army's website talking about the specifications for these missiles. And the payload for the M39 Block 1 is 950 anti-personnel, anti-material bomblets. The M39A1 Block 1A has 300 of these anti-personnel, anti-material bomblets. So the way that this missile is built and designed is that at the front of the missile, this should be 300 of these M74 bomblets, each with an explosive power just greater than basically a hand grenade. And these bomblets scatter. So here is the Block 1A variant with 950 M74 bomblets in the front of the payload. And here's a website, I'll link it down below, that gives the first description of how these missiles operate. But the M39 missile warhead is used against personnel and soft targets. Planes include soft targets. So each missile dispenses a cargo of approximately 950 anti-personnel and anti-material M74 grenades over the target area. The warhead event is initiated by an electronic time fuse. Basically, the missile knows how far above the ground it is, and that's when the fuse goes off, and this is what happens. The fuse detonates shaped charges mounted to the skin and the bulkheads. This in turn severs the skin of the missile. By means of centrifugal force and airstream currents, the M74 grenades are distributed over the target area. So this is pretty nasty. So the logical interpretation of what the heck does a missile do, we all assume that it hits the ground and then goes boom. That's not what these ATACMS missiles do. So the missile has a fuse in the warhead that detonates prior to impact. It opens up the skin of the missile, and the bomblets, sometimes 950 of them, scatter into the air to hit over a wider dispersed area. Pretty crazy. So that is how you get these planes. That is how you kill maximum amount of Russian military personnel. The missile goes boom up here, and then you scatter all the grenades. And this explains what we're seeing. We're not seeing giant craters in the ground obvious where a missile hits. Instead, we're seeing a much smaller crater. They obviously, with GPS coordinates, targeted the ammunition warehouse and the fuel warehouse. But the hope is that the bomblets would scatter and also get these planes. So if a missile was targeted to be here, the bomblets scattered and they successfully got this plane. This one more or less looks intact, but there's probably still some damage. There was a GPS coordinate for here that took out some planes down here. In addition to getting this one, there's an impact crater here, and you can see that the bomblets scattered and got these 3 planes. But it is kind of random. So if they took out this building up here, this plane looks undamaged and completely unscathed. You could argue it all depends on the randomness and maybe which way the wind is blowing. So is it still a potential that special forces snuck onto the base? Yes, until we have visual evidence of the missiles coming in or Russia confirms it. I can't rule it out. Can we not rule out that this was a domestically produced missile system by the Ukrainians? I can't do that either because, once again, there's no definitive proof. And it is possible that the United States gave the Ukrainians these AGM-88 anti-radiation missiles. They sent in the missiles first to take out Russia's air defense systems at this base. Their S-400 system was down. They then hit them with a domestically produced missile system. It is possible, but I like my explanation better. So why? Why is the Pentagon denying that they've provided these ATACMS missiles to Ukraine so far? And I think there's a psychological game being played here by the United States because they want Russia to first accuse them of doing so. And Russia hasn't done that. Russia said that this was an accident, a careless soldier dropping his cigarette on the ground. If Russia accuses the United States, then the United States will admit it. That's what happened with these anti-radiation missiles. The United States never said they were going to give them. They weren't denying it, but they weren't confirming it. It was only after pictures of the missile taken by Russian soldiers with the serial number and the name on it that the United States finally admitted that we gave them the anti-radiation missiles. So what the United States wants is for Russia to accuse the United States of providing these missiles, because in the meantime, the Russian military is lying. And when you're lying to your own people, when you're lying to your own soldiers, and then the truth comes out weeks or months later, how does that make you look as a government or some kind of spokesperson for the military? So here's the famous general, never interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake. So if Russia wants to deny that they don't have the capability to defend their soldiers and equipment in occupied Crimea, the United States is happy to let them keep saying that. In the meantime, for all of us spectators, it's pretty hilarious how useless the air defense systems is, and I think this terror is spreading throughout the Russian military that their air defense systems can't protect them, and Ukraine has something that is going after all of these targets now in occupied Crimea. Alright, that's all for this update video. If you found it informative, give me a thumbs up. If you know something I don't, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, take care, be safe.